People are very goofy. One minute they'll call you a nobody, you'll be the laughing stock, and then the next minute they're mimicking you or they're copying you or they're trying to imitate you. And as they say, imitation is the most sincere form of flattery. But if they don't know how to accentuate their own character and manifest that into their being so that they can live out their own presuppositions for life on the basis and understanding of their own virtue and character that they're prescribing to, they're going to lead to themselves. They're going to lead themselves to hate you. And this is where they thought you were nobody, and now they're trying to take you out. They're trying to remove you. You see, we are people that, if you are on the narrow path, you've likely had a lot of hardships in your life. And I don't necessarily think that it's fair to compare and contrast between the different kinds of people that have went through different kinds of hardships. And you can't really weigh one suffering against another. Everybody has different forms of suffering, but sorrow is sorrow and pain is pain. And it actually has been proven scientifically that emotional pain can be as damaging, if not more so, than physical damage for brain activity. And this leads to a enlarged amygdala, and this leads to problems with the prefrontal cortex. And it takes tremendous healing, and it takes tremendous sacrifice and reparenting yourself along the way to do this. But this leads to an important point, an poignant point, which is that loyalty for most people, especially if you're in the business or the marketplace of ideas or just the marketplace of skills, loyalty doesn't really matter to the extent that we want to believe it does. And the reason for that is because loyalty doesn't always pay the bills. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be loyal. I think we need more people to be loyal. I think we need more people to be true to their word. But I'm also saying that the kinds of jealousy that will be invoked from your capacity for greatness is not to be underestimated. And they don't want you to win. You will anyway, but they don't want you to win, and they're going to try to remove you. I cannot tell you how many times people have had business opportunities set before me, and they just want a part of your momentum. They just want a part in riding your wave. And it's really too bad, because I would love to help as many people as I possibly can reach spiritual fulfillment. That's really what I'm aiming to do. And especially, I've come to realize as of recently that I'm more so a rich person's spiritual guide, more so than I am anything else in regard to this channel. And what I mean by that is, it's not necessarily, it can mean multiple things. It's the rich in regard to material, but it's also the rich in heart. They don't know, oftentimes, these people that I have consultations with, they have, and I'm not talking about anybody in general, I'm just speaking, I'm speaking generally here. It's almost as if the people have so much heart. They know that titles don't really matter. And it reminds me of something that the movie Braveheart talks about. It's like, people don't follow titles, they follow courage. And the people that I've seen, they want to follow their own courage, but they're also, in a way, scared to. And so this leads them to think about things in regard to life in a way that they don't necessarily need to. They want to create something, they want to manifest something, but they don't have the courage to always do so. And it's not necessarily strictly in business or entrepreneurship, or it's like in their relationships, or just in what they want to focus on with themselves. And there's a lot of trouble that comes their way when they actually start to accumulate some sort of momentum. And you've got to think about the momentum it takes to take off in an airplane. It takes a lot of engine power to get those airplanes up off the ground, right? But once it's off the ground, then things got to get a lot more smooth. And then you reach a point where you can just hover at a certain elevation and you can go to your destination, right? Well, a lot of the times people want to take off. They want to take off in that airplane, but they don't always know the correct forms of momentum to get them off the ground. And a lot of it is because of the naysayers, of the jealous people, the envious people. And again, this kind of stuff is not to be underestimated. It takes tremendous emotional solidity. Is that a word? Solidity? I'm thinking of the word solidify maybe. But you guys see what I'm saying here. It takes great emotional solidarity, perhaps is the better term, to completely ground yourself and have that kind of high stress tolerance available, because that's what leaders are made of. And if you want to lead yourself to a better life and trust in God along the way and have faith in God that He's going to lead you to lead yourself properly, well, then you really have to just block out this kind of information. And it's not to say that you shouldn't take critiques, but it's also to say that you shouldn't doubt your worth just because somebody doesn't understand what you're actually saying. And that's the key. And how do you know if you're actually understandable? Well, you're not forcing somebody to believe in what you are. You're not trying to berate somebody else because of the way they think. You're just simply saying, this is where I'm at, and from my understanding, this is where you're at. This is where I believe that we differ. You're just stating the facts of where you disagree or where you're different or whatnot, and you're not actually trying to force anybody into believing anything. You're not trying to force somebody into thinking a certain way. And on this channel, I want to encourage the breeding of as many independent thinkers as possible, because it's so much more interesting. Is it just me, or is most people are the same? Most people are even the content creators are just talking about the same kinds of topics. It takes a certain kind of content creator for me even anymore to really capture my attention, to really see that they've got something going on that is not necessarily like anybody else. They've got something going on that is actually authentic. And I get it. I get in this world, it's very hard to be authentic anymore because of all the different things that are happening, all the technological advancements, all of the different kinds of the weight of being captivating and entertaining. And even with these videos, there's this form of not only knowledge and wisdom that you ought to bestow, but it's also this form of entertainment. But this is where studying people like Jesus is really coming into play. This is where people can really understand, like, Jesus was not just he wasn't just full of wisdom. He wasn't, obviously he is who he is, but he was also in some way very entertaining to the people. He captured their spirit. He entered their spirit. Well, obviously because he's Jesus, but it's also something that we ought to learn from, that we can learn from, and that we don't necessarily need to be frightened of ourselves. Because if we can enter the spirit of another person, this is actually I have the book somewhere. It's in The Art of Seduction, actually, by Robert Greene. It talks about how to enter the spirit of a person. And that's what you want to do. That's what you want to be doing is you want to, it's better to be needed than to be needy, right? Well, how do you do that? Well, you have to manifest certain skills. You have to know certain skills. Do you know how to sew? That's something that I'm planning to learn over the next couple weeks. It's not a very manly thing to learn, I suppose. Most of the time when people think about sewing, I suppose people think about it as a feminine thing, but honestly, it would actually be very useful for me to learn how to sew, because I've got some things, some projects in my, some artistic projects that I'm working on that require me to learn the knowledge of sewing. So I would like to learn how to sew. And this is going to be a skill that I can pass on to other people down the line. But, do you know how to chop wood? Do you know how to start a fire? Do you know how to change tires, right? That's another thing that most people are not necessarily beholden to. They don't know how to do these things. They don't know how to do the basic things. And I'm not saying you should go out and be, a stonemason or anything like that. I'm not saying you need to learn how to be a bricklayer, but just these little basic everyday tools that you kind of don't think about. It's even like when you're preparing for something, like if you're preparing for when crap hits the fan, right? If you're preparing for this, a lot of the things, what I thought of this winter was having an extra pair of gloves. Man, that would be so useful and beneficial in the future if things happen and it's winter and your pairs of gloves, your pair of gloves that you currently have don't work anymore, or they need to be somehow they need to be fixed, or something happens to get cut. You need that extra pair of gloves. It's just like little things like that you don't necessarily think about, but that you'll need down the line. And you just have to be strategic in noticing these daily things instead of noticing who's saying what on social media. That's what it comes down to, is a lot of people, I've been guilty of this as well in the past, where I get so stuck with scrolling that I forget what I'm actually on social media for. And the only social media that I have really is for business. And the only time I'm using social media is to research. I'm always researching. I'm not just watching things just to watch things. I'm not on it 24/7. If I am accumulating any kind of content and I'm consuming any kind of content, I'm ensuring that I'm going to be able to do something with it. And this is one of the other reasons why people in general, they will, if you know how to be smart in the system, if you know how to make strong, proper decisions, that's another reason they're going to try to take you out, or they're going to try to remove you. Okay, they're going to try to undermine you. All these different kinds of things. And it's all because you know how to make proper decisions. That's it. That's all that it is. And these people, you just got to acknowledge that they are who they are and let go. And I know that sometimes anger can be like that hot piece of coal that you hold on to, that it really only hurts you in the end. And that's an ancient proverb of the Eastern philosophies, I presume, but that is something that we must acknowledge and ask for mercy and grace on, because from the Most High, because we don't need to hold on to that kind of anger. And if you do have that kind of anger, then take it to a form of creativity. Take it to a form of creating something for the longevity of your life, because this is the time. Like, people can still get on the internet and build a social media personal brand. You can build a business through social media. In fact, I'm starting to believe even websites are dead or dying in some way. Maybe they're not quite dead because there's a lot of utility still, but they're dying. And I have a feeling that social media will become the new place, the new thing, and it's only going to get more novel by the decade, if not by the every couple years or so. And it's because things are just moving so fast, and we're going to reach a point where things are progressing and technology is progressing faster than we can even keep up. And in some way, I think a lot of the boomers are already there. I'm not saying all of them, but a lot of them are already there, where technology has just gotten away from them and they don't care to keep up anymore. It's just too much for them. And I don't really blame them, because it is a lot, and it is a lot to keep up with. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's unworthy to keep up with, and it doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to hinder your capacity for growth in the long term. So anyways, guys, with all that being said, I hope this message was useful and insightful for you. Please give a like or a comment to this video if you found it useful or insightful. And shout out to everybody in the Regal Change Academy. I appreciate everybody also moving from the YouTube platform over to X, Rumble, and Instagram recently, as well as like Facebook and TikTok and all those. I'm on all of those, but I'm not as active on them here as on YouTube. X is the only place that I'm also active on, because I know X is going to be big. So that's where I'm going to be if I'm not on YouTube. And that's where I post some of the content that I cannot post here on YouTube, because there have been a lot of times in the past where I've tried to post certain things on certain topics and it won't let me. And you guys can probably figure that out for yourself. I'll get warnings and such. It'll let me, but I'll get warnings or a possibility of a strike. And I don't want that to happen, because I want to make sure that you guys still have the information needed to endure. All right. So with all that being said, peace be with you all. Until next time.